let's hear a little bit more from the 4-time MVP and eventually intends to be member of the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers, on where he stood before he locked himself in a closet and what his current intention is. And pay careful attention to the word intention. Have a listen.
I got to admit, I went in the darkness, 90% retiring, 10% playing. That's where my mind was. I think since Friday, I made it clear that my intention was to play, and my intention was to play for the New York Jets.
Okay.
And I haven't been holding anything up at this point. It's been compensation that the Packers are trying to get for me and kind of digging their heels in. So I would just I think it is interesting at this point to step back and look at the whole picture. My side, love and appreciation, gratitude for everything that Green Bay has done for me. So much love and gratitude and just heart open for the Packer fans.
Hell yeah.
And what it's meant to be their quarterback. And also the reality of the situation, it is what it is. The Packers would like to move on. They've let me know that in so many words. They've let other people know that in direct words. And because I still have that fire and I want to play and I would like to play in New York, it's just a matter of, getting that done at this point.
There was a moment, and for an important interview like this, and really, I can't turn it off. When you practice law and you're always listening for inconsistencies in people's versions, it doesn't go away. You're always scanning everything they say to see if it meshes with other things they said. And the way he laid it out, Chris, at the end of the season, he claims the Packers were unconditional and unequivocal in their desire for him to come back.
Right.
You decide what you're going to do. We want you here as long as you want to be here. And he goes into the darkness retreat, 90% leaning toward retirement, with that understanding that the Packers have a spot for him if he wants it. And then when he comes out, something has changed. That's when he starts to get the idea, based upon things he's hearing, that they want to move on. But later in the interview, he
changes that a little bit, right?
He was getting this sense, right,
at the end of the season. Right. That's where I wanted to go here.
During the season, too.
Right.
Yeah. During the season, he's getting the sense they want to move on. So which is it? See, this is where, if it was a little 60 minutes-ish, someone would have said, hey, Aaron, hey, time out. You said earlier at the end of the year they made it clear they wanted you, and now you're saying that you got a sense during the season they didn't. So you either walked out the door thinking they were going to leave a light on for you, or you walked out the door thinking they don't want me back. Which one is it? Help me understand this. And there's a way you can frame it like, I'm confused.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Not hard-hitting fastballs, aimed at the forehead. You could say, I just want to understand, and they may have a little bit. I may have to go back and rewatch it. But that was the opening to say, you're kind of telling two different stories here, and you're trying to create, it's almost like the Michael Jordan, I'm going to create the thing that drives me. The Packers did me wrong. The Packers lied to me. The Packers created an impression and something changed. And I'm even more motivated now to go play really well to prove that they should have wanted me back, even if he did have the idea all year long that the train was pulling into the station.
I don't know what he was trying to accomplish there. I don't. I certainly picked up on the same thing, Mike. I was sitting there and even rewound the part where he was at. Hey, I think it was really after AJ Hawk asked him kind of a tough question, where he kind of went, "Wait, hey, I kind of knew that was never going to happen." If you remember that part, right, Mike? I had a feeling. I knew really towards the end of the season, the last few games, I could tell that the momentum for me being back, and they didn't want me, and he was getting feelings. And I know I'm paraphrasing that way a little bit. But yeah, there's a little bit of talk out of both sides of his mouth when it comes to that, department. And I'm also with you in the, one, I don't love to ever hear a player go, well, I went into this last week 90% retiring, 10% playing. I'm always a little bit, well, then you're kind of on retirement. I don't know. It doesn't make me feel good if you're coming to my team and I'm going, wait, the guy a week ago was 90% retiring. Now he went in a dark room and he wants to play football and he's motivated. That makes me question that too. But yes, to your last point there of just like it seems like the fire got lit a little bit because of, hey, I'm hearing they talk to people. They definitely want to move on. And in some words, they told me, but they were direct to the other teams. And that, I feel like that's what he wanted to say. But that lit a fire under me a little bit. But I was with you. That was definitely one of the most inconsistent parts of the whole interview where it did not match up with two different things he said there.
And the message intended by that, I believe, is to the Packers, F around and find out. See, if you just would have acted like you wanted me, I would have just retired. And you wouldn't have to deal with me going to the Jets and possibly taking the Jets to heights that the Packers will be incapable of matching. The only thing that would make this any better is if they played each other this year. Why couldn't this have happened a year ago and the Jets would be going to Lambeau Field like they did in 2022? So, but I think it's more about not beating the Packers. It's more about trying to get back to the Super Bowl. And this is where the all-in bet comes from Rodgers. If you get to the Super Bowl with this team that is fairly loaded, sneakily loaded are the Jets.
Definitely.
You make it look like the Packers are the thing that held you back from being Tom Brady as it relates to more Super Bowl appearances. It wasn't me, it was them. Now, I want to pivot, Chris, to this issue that Rodgers laid bare. I agree with you. I thought it was malpractice initially for the Packers to allow the Jets to talk to Rodgers without knowing what specifically the Jets would give.
Right.
It dawned on me yesterday, though. Once Rodgers bears his soul, once Rodgers comes out and says what he said, I mean, look, the Packers are in the driver's seat here. The Packers are in a position to drive a hard bargain because they can squat on this contract. And I said yesterday, they're willing to wait until the draft. And hell, if they wait until after the draft, they wait until after June 1, it's a much better cap charge this year for the Green Bay Packers if they trade him after that June 1 point where the acceleration goes next year, not this year. So they're in actually a pretty good spot to sit, cross their arms, and wait for the Jets. Now, I agree with Rodgers on one point, and we've said this as it relates to Tom Brady. We've said it as it relates to Aaron Rodgers. He's given you 18 years. He's been, and he said it himself,
no doubt,
one of the best. I mean,
one of
he
the
said
best.
The best.
Well,
one of the best.
He named Bart
Packers
Starr
players
and
ever.
Favre and all that.
Right.
Yes, no
right.
doubt, though.
But he was right. But he put himself in the pantheon, and he belongs there.
Sure.
And he's been a loyal soldier.
Right.
And he didn't cause this mess. He didn't draft Jordan Love. He wanted to stay until it was time to retire. And do right by Aaron Rodgers. He said it, and I agree with it wholeheartedly, Green Bay Packers. It's wrong for you to slow this down. You weren't going to get anything for him if he truly was going to retire. You weren't going to get his services. You weren't going to get compensation. You weren't going to get jack diddly squat. So why are you being difficult now? That, I agree with him 100%.
100.
And it's better for outsiders to make that argument than him. Because look at it this way. Packers fans don't care at this point. He's leaving.
Yeah.
Where's the pressure going to come on the Packers to do something now? Do you think their fans are going to say, you should let him go? Or, damn it, screw that guy. Get everything you can.
Well, I think a little bit of both. I check, look at comments on the article, and articles you've written. I think there is a little that way. Like, he's done great. But yeah, you're right. More than not, it's going to be, wait, let's get more. Let's get more for our football team. But he played that card yesterday. Yeah, because he's probably feeling like, what the hell? What's going on here? He definitely did. Mike, that's why I know we're friends. It's the exact spot I wanted to go to next. Yeah, okay. I don't know what you would call it, but yes, he made it a plea, and why making that plea reminded us that, yeah, there is no question. For me, he's the best player in the history of that franchise. He is. You know that. I think Aaron Rodgers at his prime is arguably the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life. There's nothing like him when he was going strong. And then we've talked about this, to exhausting limits. I mean, it has not been the greatest support system there. They've been good. They've been in the Super Bowl window for about 15 years, and it was only because number 12. We were never like, oh, the Packers this year have a shutdown defense. Oh, the Packers this year have an unbelievable running game. Watch out for that. Oh, the Packers this year have weaponry around Rodgers everywhere. Yeah, I know he's had some good receivers, and of course Devontae Adams here towards the end, that was special. But still, he carried a team consistently for 12, 13 years. And we all, every year, well, Green Bay, maybe put him in the Super Bowl. I mean, you did it last year. It's the Rodgers effect, right? That's part of it. So, yeah, I would like to think that they would have a little soft place in their heart for one of their own, and that's where he got into, treat people the right way and people who have been there and, blood and sweat for your organization. I understand those thoughts, but there also is a part of me that goes, well, hey, they got to do right by you, and they should, but you've kind of been needling them for the last 3 years too, and they're probably enjoying watching you squirm a little bit here towards the end of this whole relationship.
What a shock that the guy that Aaron Rodgers reportedly wanted to be fired is now being difficult when the time comes.
That's what I mean.
To
right.
end the relationship.
Right.
What a surprise.
Right.
What a freaking surprise.
I don't care how professional you are.
Might
right?
take advantage. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always personal.
Exactly.
And the other reality, too, with the Green Bay Packers, when you don't have an owner, there isn't that one person who can feel any external pressure to do anything. They can just sit back and do their jobs, and there's no one who's going to show up today and say, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of all these stories. I'm sick of what these people are saying. I'm sick of the fact that they're making me look bad by saying that I'm doing wrong by one of the great players in franchise history. They're saying this, they're saying that. I'm sick of it. Mark Murphy doesn't have that same juice that an owner would have. And I think it makes it more likely the Packers dig in because the Jets do have an owner who can show up at any moment and say to Joe Douglas, give them what they want.
Yeah.
This needs to be over. Now, I want to make sure that I share what I believe on what I think the Packers want. But before I get there,
okay, yep.
Here's where I think we have to at least account, given his history, for the possibility that he's playing word games. Because we know he knows how to play a good word game.
What do you mean by that?
We know well.
Yeah.
I've been immunized.
Yeah, okay.
We know he likes to play word games.
Yeah.
Okay. When he says, and we've been down this road multiple times as it relates to teams with players that are rumored to be traded. What do they say, Chris? We don't intend to trade Percy Harvin. We don't intend to trade Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
It's my intention to play for the Jets. And anybody else? He surely isn't going to show up if the Packers drag their feet on this. He surely isn't going to say, my intention has changed. I now want to play for the Green Bay Packers. And I think it would be very tough for him to walk back everything he said yesterday. But the same way, and see, when someone reveals to you that they have the capacity to play these stupid-ass, what did I exactly say?
Right.
You didn't seek clarification. Shame on you. Right? Well, is he going to turn back around and say, shame on Pat McAfee, A.J. Hawk, and Pac-Man Jones for not asking me, can your intention change? They could have asked me, but they didn't. But he specifically said intention. And since we've already played the immunized game with Aaron Rodgers, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That's why we have to keep our eyes out for the possibility that he specifically said intention so he could still try the nuclear option if the Packers drag their feet too long, and he could just show up and say, here I am, deal with me, F you, pay me, and you're going to pay me $60 million.
Well, that's where, I think there's the healthy discussion of, as you kind of started off the conversation, and I think this is where it's kind of fun and debatable, and I'm not sure what side I'm on here, but when you talked about it and you hit it, like, hey, the Packers, they have a lot of power here, and the way the contract is set up, and the June 1st, and all of that, and they got their quarterback, and you're right about that, and the Jets don't have anybody other than Zach Wilson, and the fan base would rather jump off the George Washington Bridge than him be the starting quarterback of the Jets. So there is that aspect, but there is the other aspect of, what we're talking about. Okay, Rodgers, yes, he is the greatest player, top 3 of franchise history. I mean, do you really want to do people dirty like that? That doesn't make it look good for even players in your locker room or future players, anything like that. All right, now, yes, he's going to be on McAfee. He's going to talk and probably just continue to pressure them if this doesn't go the way they want, talk about them more, say things. And then there's the element you're talking about, whether, Rodgers, he is that kind of guy, I think, that maybe would show up if it got to the point where he's like, what the hell? What? Okay, fine. I'm going to come here and be the damn. I mean, he does have that card, and that would be the ultimate dysfunctional, let me mess up your current locker room and your franchise as it speaks right now, distraction. So that's where I'm, Mike, and I don't know if there's something else I'm missing, please point it out, but that's where I'm kind of go back and forth with the power element of this conversation here.
I don't think he wants to play that card, but I think using the term intention
is enough.
Was specifically aimed at keeping it in his pocket.
Yeah, right.
And so
right.
If he has to get to this point, if he has to show the sword a little bit, if they continue to be unreasonable, if his effort to simply make a plea to their good nature, if they have any, and they do. They do. We all have good nature somewhere. Right. And it's a question of whether or not the right person says the right thing at the right time to get us to realize we need to do the right thing. And that's what he's trying to do. And I think he's hoping that folks like us will take up the cause for him. Well, maybe not me specifically. Too bad, Aaron. I'm doing it. I think he's right. I think they should let him go. I think they should be reasonable. And I know this, the Jets believe they are being unreasonable. We don't know yet. Still being very careful and quiet. I have a theory, or a hypothesis at least, on what the Packers want, but the Jets, I know, believe that the Packers are being unreasonable, and the question is, who blinks? And Chris, from the Jets' perspective, I hadn't thought of it before. Do they really need him there? He knows the offensive system like the back of his hand.
No,
Nathaniel Hackett is the coordinator.
100%.
They can play this out.
They could. This is exactly right. It'd be an easier transition, really, than it was for Brett Favre going there, whatever, how many years ago that was, 14, 15 years ago. It will. So that is not going to be a problem. Now, you'd like him there, right, for all the things we've stated here over the last few weeks and the things we complained about a little bit during the regular season, that, hey, you want to, get with these guys, grow with them, get on the same page as Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson and some of these younger football players. But no, it's not an end-all, be-all. It's not, and we saw Brady kind of in his year, they didn't have OTAs that year, right? The COVID season, he might have to do something like that. Go to New York, throw balls, be on a practice field, some high school in New Jersey, something like that, and kind of do it. And that's, you're right. So that's where they're not desperate. And in the meantime, they could sell it as like, hey, Zach Wilson's getting some practice reps and kind of getting going, and, he's developing too. So there is a little bit of it's not end-all, be-all right now, get it done for the Jets either because of that. I think it's a good point, Mike.
And the one thing that the Packers do benefit from, because this came up yesterday, that the Packers clear his salary off the books, the Packers don't have to pay him, it's in their interest to move on from him. They do have a situation where his cap number with him on the roster is $6 or $7 million lower than the cap charge will be if they trade him before June 1. So there is some burden to doing this. If he was just going to retire, they carry the $31 million until after June 1, and then they move him to the reserve retired list at that point. The cap charge goes down to 12-ish for this year, with 24 hitting next year. They would have that luxury if he wasn't going to be traded, if they were just going to move him to the reserve retired list. So there is a burden to the Packers in trading him before June 1. So the question is, that extra $6 million in cap charge, that the Packers absorbed this year, what's that worth by way of an enhanced draft pick, on top of the fact that they're giving Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets? And look, if you've got – this is why it was genius for the Packers to do this, and this is why I'm amending my statement that it was malpractice to not have the agreement in place. I think back to what the Texans did last year.
Yeah.
They basically had a cover charge to talk to Deshaun Watson. You had to satisfy GM Nick Caserio as to what you were willing to give.
Right.
Here's what they were trying to avoid. If you have 4 teams and you have 3 of them that are ready to give you everything you want, and you have 1 that won't, and you let your player talk to all 4 of them, you're running the risk that he falls in love with the one that's playing hardball. So that's why you make sure they all meet your requirement before you even let them talk. When you only have 1, it's a different analysis.
Yeah, sure.
You got 1 team that's coming at him, 1 team that wants to talk to him. That team already wants him. Go ahead. Let's let the hook get in a little bit deeper, and then we'll put our thumbs on the scale when you've got no other options. When Derek Carr has signed with the Saints, when Jimmy Garoppolo is signing with the Raiders, you got nowhere else to go. Now it's give us what we want. So it was genius by the Packers to do that, because they then could come back around and say, we want what we want, and if you want him now, this is what you're going to give us, and we're in no hurry to do this deal.
Yeah, well, and to your point there, and as you were explaining it too, it's hard not to say, hey, Rodgers is maybe at fault of that situation as well a little bit, with kind of just dragging his feet and maybe not, trying to make the rounds to meet with certain teams and start that a little bit. He's the one that kind of boxed himself in here. We kind of knew, like, it was Jets or who else? Oh, maybe the Raiders, right? But I don't think anybody thought that was serious there. So he never really got out there or made any other teams involved or got any teams involved in this conversation. So I think you could place some blame there. But, like, at what point, Mike, too, I want to hear your theory. What do you think they're asking for? That's where, again, I got no lean here, no feel at all. People keep bringing up the Matthew Stafford trade. I go, that's ridiculous. Matthew Stafford was 32 when he got traded, and then there's the whole Jared Goff getting the contract off the books and all of that conversation. So that trade is not apples to apples there. So I'm like extremely intrigued. I'm a fan here, going like, what do they want? What are they asking for? What's going on here? I got no clue.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.